Bienvenidos al video de la historia de España. Messy, bullfighting. Spain is definitely not a stranger to anyone. Famous for its great people, scenic beauty, vast coastline, and not to forget its scrumptious food, paella, it has become a go-to travel spot for all. The Spanish flag, or better known as La Rojigualda, which means the red welt in English, has a fascinating meaning behind it. The colour of the flag is red and yellow. The colours were selected to resemble bullfighting, but for many people, the colour red represents hardiness, strength, and bravery, whereas the yellow represents generosity.
The War of the Spanish Succession was a major European conflict that arose in 1701 after the death of the last Spanish Habsburg king, Charles II. In his last will, Charles had designated the throne and all his possessions to Philip of Anjou, a grandson of the French king Louis XVI, who became Philip V of Spain. This war involved not only Spain, but also other countries such as England, the Dutch Republic, Austria, and many more. What we're about to see is how different countries fight for the power to rule Spain.
1665, the Spanish throne was passed to the sickly Charles II. El Hechizado, or the Bewitched, was what the Spaniards called him because of his severe mental and physical impairments, including infertility. Charles II died at the age of 38, leaving no heir to inherit his throne.
1700s. Because Charles II was heirless, the two royal families that were the closest to him made claims for the Spanish throne. But in his will, Charles II had stated that his kingdom should be left to Philip of Anjou, the grandson of the famed French monarch Louis XVI. Louis abided by Charles's will and recognized Philip as the new king of Spain. Not so fast. The Holy Roman Emperor Leopold, the second royal family that was closely related to the late Charles II, refused to recognize Philip of Anjou and laid claim to the Spanish throne on behalf of his son instead, Archduke Karl VI. Wow, what a mouthful. But his nickname is Carlos.
1701, the Spanish people were not fans of Carlos. On one side stood France and Spain, aided by Portugal, Hungary, Savoy, and a handful of German principalities in favour of Duke of Anjou. And on the other stood the Grand Alliance composed of England, Scotland, the Dutch Republic, Austria, Prussia, and Hanover for Team Carlos. 1702, war broke out in Europe with Holland, England, and most of the German states aligned against France, Spain, Bavaria, Portugal, and Savoy.
1704. Louis XVI was desperate to end the war, even willing to give up the Spanish inheritance, but no agreement could be reached that satisfied everyone, so the war went on and the alliance won victory after victory in Central Europe, but Philip of Anjou remained firmly seated on the throne as a result of his popularity with the Spanish people.
1708. The French were completely forced out of northern Italy and Spain during the Battle of Oudenarde. The French wanted to besiege Oudenarde, a municipality in Belgium. The French suffered from approximately 6,000 casualties and another 9,000 were captured. After the battle, most of the participating countries wanted the war to come to a close, but France wouldn't budge.
1710. A battle between the France-Spanish army led by Philip of Anjou erupted because the Habsburg tried to forcibly place Carlos on the throne, but it was ultimately impeded. At this point, the British dropped out of the war and even the Austrians declined to renew their efforts to gain the throne.
1714. Philip of Anjou remained on the Spanish throne. His lineage, which linked him to the French monarchy, still made the Europeans uneasy. Worries of French domination in Europe were abated by taking several measures to limit French power, including the transfer of territories and trade privileges to the Grand Alliance. Finally, the war ended with the Treaty of Utrecht, which strengthened the balance of power in Europe by securing two major goals, the most important one being ensuring that the French and Spanish thrones remain separated. Not many people realized that the Utrecht marked the rise of Great Britain under Anne, and Spain would still be at war with Portugal until the Treaty of Madrid was signed in February 1715. And that was how the War of Spanish Succession went down.
All of that over one throne? Wow, it's amazing and horrific what could happen of the death of an heirless monarch.
Yep, this war was actually the eye-opener for Europeans that truly showed them the fatal weakness of monarchy-led states. If an heirless ruler passed on, it would lead the whole country to chaos and anarchy.
But that's not the only reason the war erupted. The European monarchs then were blinded by power. They couldn't work together to find a viable solution, which led them to take it to the battlefield. A simple matter of succession for the throne of one country was blown out of proportion.
That's true. In part, this war was responsible for the decline of the influence of monarchies in Europe, which hastened the movement from monarchy to democracy for a lot of European countries,
including Spain. Spain went through several political changes after this war, but as of now is formally a democracy, although the Spanish monarchy still exists.
The war also impacted Spain geographically speaking. Spain suffered from major loss of its territories in Europe, such as Gibraltar, which it is still trying to reclaim from the British.
Spain was never quite the same after the war. Unstable political situation and loss of land caused the country to lose much of its influence and has never again reached the height of its former power. It is thanks to the Spaniards' hard work to rebuild their country that Spain is still a powerful country today.
And that marks the end of our video. Spanish Succession Quiz, bring it on!